Namaskar. Welcome to this session. It's a brief session on Dr. B.R.Ambedkar, a father of the Indian Constitution as we know him. He is a very well-known philosopher, political thinker, and thinkers of our times of modern and contemporary India. So this belongs to modern contemporary Indian philosophy, and you may please pay attention to this particular unit, to this session on Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Uh, the first thing which comes into our mind about B.R. Ambedkar, Dr. Ambedkar, is that he drafted the first draft of the Indian Constitution right after India gained independence from the British domination. And B.R. Ambedkar is the philosopher and thinker of modern India who launched anti-caste movement. Uh, he did not believe in any caste system, and he held caste system responsible for most of the ills of the Indian society. Hence, he was a very progressive, modern, very advanced thinker of his age. And till now, we quote Dr. B.R. Ambedkar when we are talking about progressive measures. So, Dr. Ambedkar, we will focus on his main thoughts, which were born out of his social thinking, thinking for the Indian society. Okay, so Dr. Ambedkar, popularly known as Baba Sahib Ambedkar, was one of the most learned among the political and social leaders of the 20th century in India. He wrote and published many books and edited many papers. He wrote not only on the problems of the Dalits, the backward caste, the scheduled caste, particularly very, very low caste known as Dalits in Indian uh, society or in Indian usage in parlance. But he also wrote on economics, politics, religion, minorities, education, labor, stratification of society, that is the Indian caste system and related issue. Ambedkar's life and works. Ambedkar, the glory of India and the pride of Dalits, was born on 14th April 1891 in a low caste family of suppressed Mahar community of Mao in Madhya Pradesh. After his graduation, he received scholarship from the King of Baroda for higher studies in United States of America and England. He graduated in law and took a doctorate in economics. On account of ill treatment meted out to him, being an untouchable, being a Mahar, he left the service and returned to Bombay to practice law. On 14th October 1935, he declared that he would not die in Hinduism. He served the country as the chairman of the Constitution Drafting Committee. Ambedkar is regarded as the modern Manu and deserves, that is, Manu and Manusmriti of 1st century AD. So he is regarded as the modern Manu of India, whose law book can be quoted, and deserves to be called the father of the chief father of the Indian Constitution or chief architect of the Indian Constitution. On August 15, 1947, he was made the Minister of Law in the Central Cabinet, and he resigned that post in 1951 due to difference of opinion on the Bill on Hindu Code. He embraced Neo-Buddhism, so he left Hinduism because of the uh, inequalities meted out to the lower castes, the practice of atrocities. Therefore, he embraced Neo-Buddhism with his 3 lakh followers on 14th October 1956, just before his death on 6th December 1956. His works include slavery. Let us look at the titles of his famous works: Slavery and Untouchability, which is worse. Next, Annihilation of Caste, a reply to Mahatma Gandhi. What Congress and Gandhi have done to untouchables. Who were the Shudras? The Buddha and his Dhamma, and again annihilation of caste. So that is kind of a series of his work. Now, what were the influences and background to his thoughts? Ambedkar was born in a community of those who have been unjustly treated as the despised people of the Indian soil. Right from his childhood, he suffered terribly the social evils of caste discrimination and its holocaust called untouchability. He was a voracious reader and owned one of the largest personal libraries. He had a vast reading on Karl Marx, Bertrand Russell, and Harold Rasky, Leo Tolstoy, and George Bernard Shaw, all the famous philosophers of the 19th and 20th centuries, the names that we just read. In a way, Ambedkar continued the same tradition of liberal thought found in the writings of social reformers like Rande, like Rana Day. Ambedkar's social theory was influenced by the British liberal tradition also. Buddhist teaching. Buddhist teaching also made a great impact on the philosophy of Ambedkar. Ambedkar's purpose was practical rather than speculative, and his philosophy of life was essentially a development and evolution under the condition of an inhuman social order and a wrongly idealized social relationship in India that treated the human existence of Dalits as subhuman. For him, social reform has to come before the political reform. He criticizes violently the caste system. That's why he wrote a series called Annihilation of Caste. He feels that the caste system as it stands cannot be the basis of Indian society. He believes that the caste system should be rejected as basically unjust. It is social system which embodies the arrogance and selfishness of a perverse section of the Hindus who were superior enough in social status to set in fashion and who have authority to force it on their inferiors. Caste does not result in economic efficiencies. Caste cannot and has not improved the rest. The whole life ambition of Ambedkar was to regain social equality to the former untouchables among whom he was born. Ambedkar's social thought. Now let's look at Ambedkar's social thought. The ideal to be realized is of one man or a woman, one value in all walks of life, political, economic, and social. This ideal of one value is to be achieved by stopping religious, social, and economic exploitation of man and women by other men and women. Absence of exploitation in any form is the essence of socialism. Socialism does not only embrace economic equality but also social and political equality. The foremost hindrance to socialism in India is the caste system in Hinduism and its byproduct untouchability, which denied almost all the human rights to the untouchables. Following are the characteristics of Ambedkar's state socialism: condemnation of existing social, political, and economic order as unjust order, belief that this ideal is realizable through socialism and parliamentary democracy and constitutional means, a revolutionary way of establishing social democracy to carry out the program of social solidarity. Ambedkar had expressed his desire in the parliament to establish a social democracy which would satisfy the economic, social, educational, and cultural needs of the people. In his concluding speech in the Constituent Assembly on November 25, 1949, he declared, social democracy means a way of life which recognizes liberty, equality, and fraternity as the principle of life. These principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity are not to be treated as separate items of a trinity. They form a union of trinity in the sense that to divorce one from other is to defeat the very purpose of democracy. The basic concept of Ambedkar political thought is the equality of men and women, which is to be achieved by a state socialism of a constitutional and parliamentary democracy. Now let us look at origin of caste and untouchability. The concept of origin of caste and untouchability, according to Ambedkar, is to a large extent different from the Vedic and non-Vedic theories of caste. Obviously, he was questioning the ancient Indian foundation of social stratification. That is the initially something which was Varna system, crystallized as a caste system. Right. So Ambedkar holds that caste as a closed system uh, has its genesis in the practice of superimposition of endogamy over exogamy, that is, marriage within your own caste. The practice of untouchability for Ambedkar has its origin in the phase of conflict between the settled and nomadic tribes of those who were defeated in the war were forced to be broken men. The broken men or women in the course of history, due to the onslaught of Vedic Brahmanism, were turned into untouchables, the Dalits. So, what is according to Dr. Ambedkar, the history and origin of untouchables of the Dalits? Let us repeat: the practice of untouchability for Ambedkar has its origin in the phase of conflict, wars, battles between the settled and the nomadic tribes, and those who were defeated in war were forced to be the broken men. The broken men or women, that is prisoners, the prisoners of war, in the course of history, due to the onslaught of Vedic Brahmanism or Indian Sanskritic culture, uh, turned out to be these men and women, the prisoners, turned out to be the untouchables or Dalit, right? Annihilation of caste system. Let us look at this important topic from Ambedkar's life, which has to do with the caste system and how to annihilate the caste system. Annihilation, and he wrote and published important substantial tracts on annihilation of caste system. Annihilation of caste system is one of the most essential elements in Ambedkar's socio-physical frame, philosophical elements in Ambedkar's essential elements in Ambedkar's socio-philosophical frame, right? So it cannot be done just by abolishing the subsects nor by intercaste dynamics. Ambedkar proposes a solution on two levels. A proximate, immediate means to remove caste is intermarriage. That's why he said that endogamy versus exogamy. We have been practicing endogamy and we have been therefore perpetuating the social inequalities in the form of caste system. So if we have intermarriage, automatically the inequalities will be diluted. B. But the fundamental remedy consists in bringing about a social reform before the political reforms and in denying the faith in Shastras, where he says, I quote Dr. Ambedkar, you must not only discard the Shastras, that is the ancient Indian scriptures, but you must deny their authority. Please mind this, you must deny their authority. You must have the courage to tell the Hindus what is more wrong with their religion. According to him, uh, The Hindu, according to him, the Hindu is the sick man or woman of the society who makes other people also sick. His protest against Hinduism was expressed by burning Manusmriti in a public meeting. So, Manu or Manusmriti, the source of the traditional Hindu law, which is still being quoted by judiciary, by court in many of the cases, which got to do with like property relations or rules to do with the relationship of women to the ancestral property and related issues. We see that the judges still quote Manu and Manusmriti. The Dr. Ambedkar registered his protest against Hinduism and its practice of untouchability by burning a copy of Manusmriti in a public meeting. Now let us come from social philosophy to Ambedkar's political. His political thinking seems to resolve around the following two convictions. A. Rights are protected not by laws, but by the social and moral conscience of society. B. A democratic form of government presupposes a democratic form of society. Indian Constitution remains indebted to Ambedkar for his significant contribution to the peaceful living in the land of diversity. For Ambedkar, state is to provide security against internal disorder and external aggression. A state stands for welfare for its members. It is the people who make the state, and hence the state is to serve the needs of the people. It is a means to achieve the common good of the society. Between state and society, Ambedkar would prefer society as the primary, state as secondary. Let us repeat, between state and society, Ambedkar would prefer society as the primary agent and state as the secondary. So, state actually comes out of the primary existence of society. State, according to Dr. Ambedkar, is not of a divine origin but of human origin. To him, state is a human organization with its objective being the protection of the rights of individuals. One of his major convictions, evident in his political philosophy, can be stated as the state was not an end in itself, but only means for furthering the human ends in the interest of a better future of the society. He greatly emphasized the role of the law of the state in the growth of the individual. To him, law was an important factor in maintaining social peace and justice among different groups of people. Thus, he concludes that all are equal before the law. He upheld right as the basis. He upheld right as the basis for the human development and nation at large. Ambedkar advocated, I quote him, one state, one language formula because he thought it would be a solvent to radical and cultural conflicts. He also advised his country fellows that if they were willing to remain united and integrated as a whole and want to develop common harmonious culture, they should pool all the efforts to adopt one language, that is Hindi, as a common language. The division of states on the basis of language has created blocks in realizing the Indianness. So he was very much concerned about the unity of India, unity of people across the linguistic and cultural divides of so many states. It has given vent to the upsurge of regionalism because of this, the language and the region and the state. So it has given sort of encouragement to upsurge of regionalism that has accentuated the that has not accentuated, actually that is a problem for the integrity of India. People have confined themselves within the walls of the state. So, unity and integrity, is a problem when you have so many states divided along the line of regional languages, right? I'm sure you agree with Dr. Ambedkar. People have confined themselves within the walls of the state because of this linguistic divide. Therefore, it is very difficult to accept others, as brothers and sisters. But if we would have had only one language, we would have emphasized more upon the Indianness and not so much upon the regionalism. Then we would have accepted each other as brothers and sisters. But today we can't. That is our mooding. Idea of freedom. Ambedkar's idea of freedom is very different from Mahatma Gandhi and Pandit Nehru. The main concern of these two national heroes was more of political freedom, but Ambedkar's main focus was political freedom with social freedom, that is, freedom from social inequalities, caste system, untouchability practiced in Indian society. For him, political freedom was meaningless without the social and economic freedom. His life was hope for hapless people who were exploited unjustly. Now, what was the meaning of democracy to him? According to Ambedkar, democracy is not merely a form of government, it is primarily a form of associated living, of conjoined communicated experience. For him, the essence of democracy is the equal share in the existence of human rights. He realized the incapability of Western pattern of democracy, and he gave a new meaning to the term democracy. For him, democracy means the absence of slavery, caste, and coercion. So, according to Dr. Ambedkar, democracy means absence of slavery, caste, and coercion. Right? The roots of democracy are to be searched in social relationship, in terms of associated life among the people. Now, let us look at concept of human person. He develops his concept of human being in relation to his understanding of social order. According to him, a good social order must recognize the individual in the society. By recognizing the individual, a good social order collectively recognizes the good of the community. In the absence of the individual, the notion of society or collectively ceases to exist. Therefore, the primary role of a good society is that it should treat man or a woman as an individual. First, he or she needs to be respected in society for the reason that he or she is a human person. He further holds that human existence is not to be treated solely in the physical sense alone, but it has to be respected in the sense of something higher, that a human has spiritual superexistence through knowledge and love. For Ambedkar, respect of individual devoid of any caste class stratification is very, very sacred. Respect of an individual devoid of any caste or class, both social and economic, is sacred. For him, the human society is to be built on the foundation of freedom or liberty, equality, and fraternity. Do you know liberty, equality, fraternity were the slogans first of which event of French Revolution? One of the first revolutions documented in the history of mankind of 1789, and these were the slogans of French Revolution of 1879: liberty, equality, and fraternity. These values of freedom or liberty, equality, and fraternity are based on the notion that the individual person is not a means but an end in itself or himself, while the concept of liberty emphasizes the inviolability of the human person. The concept of equality insists that the right of the individual is to be treated as an equal and to be respected as complete member of the society irrespective of his or her attainments. Similarly, fraternity, according to Ambedkar, is the disposition of an individual to treat men or women in respect, and love and dignity, and the desire to be in unity with other fellow beings. Fraternity gives strength for the individual to commit for the welfare of all. Ambedkar further points that the tenets of liberty, equality, and fraternity are interlinked to each other and they are rooted in the idea of upholding the totality of the human person as complete individual in the society. Now let us look at Dr. Ambedkar's attitude towards religion. His attitude towards religion was not spiritual like that of Gandhi. His approach was intellectual and socio-political. Ambedkar holds that religion is a part of one's social life or inheritance, the way your forefathers has practiced, that is your religion. One's life and dignity and pride are bound up with it. He believes in the social force of religion and that the force lies in the religion being a unified system of beliefs and practices. According to him, religion has an influence or force suffused through the life of each individual, molding his or her character, determining his or her action and reactions, his or her likes and dislikes in a society. Religion for Ambedkar should respond to the problem of human society and promote human community living. In this sense, Ambedkar recognizes the Marxist frame that religion is a social phenomenon. However, he differs from the Marxist orientation that religion is the opium of people. Rather, he strongly upholds that the religion is natural and necessary for human community living. In agreement with the Marxian framework, Ambedkar conceives a false religion as an ideology that could be used as a tool to oppress the Dalits. It is here that Ambedkar makes a critical approach to Hinduism. According to him, in the name of God, the religion, Varnashrama Dharma, and untouchability were advocated in India in the name of God. Right? It was contended that the given unjust social structure was God given and hence cannot be changed. Due to this, Ambedkar developed utmost anger towards Hinduism and Hindu gods, and even God based religions like Islam and Christianity were not acceptable to him. Perhaps because of this factor, he could not take a final decision or conversion until 1956. Buddhism, finally, he accepted, uh, was not primarily God oriented but was thoroughly Indian. So he did embrace Buddhism, known as New Buddhism, new form of Buddhism, just before his death. He looked at religion from cultural dimension. He was on the assumption that if the depressed classes join Islam and Christianity, they not only would go out of Hindu religion, but they would also go out of Hindu culture. Conversion to Islam or Christianity would denationalize the depressed classes. He separated religion from culture and held Hindu religion responsible for slavery, the practice of untouchability and exploitation of the depressed classes. Ambedkar was of the opinion that the social ideals of Buddhism are the best way to be adopted to promote peaceful social living because of Buddha's method is based on love, persuasion, and moral teaching. Thank you so much for your patient hearing. This has been a relatively brief session, since we are only taking up, individuals, and we are just concentrating one at a time, one of the thinkers and philosophers. So, just a brief, let's sum up. Underlying feature of the philosophical approach of Ambedkar is its praxis orientedness. What is praxis? Do you know, students? Praxis means practices. So his is more application oriented, religion and society and economy. It should come to the benefit, should not be limited to books or theories, right? So it is praxis oriented or practice oriented. His philosophical thinking, in other way, has something to do with concrete life situation, as his thinking was derived from the dreadful practice of casteism and untouchability. The basis of his socio-political philosophy is the establishment of a just society which is free from any kind of exploitation. Even his approach to religion was born out of his social thinking, though he criticizes religion, namely Hinduism, for perpetuating the prevailing poor social status of the backward communities. He also admits the indispensable nature of religion in fostering social living. Now we have completed the sum up of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's thinking, that he was much more practical person and less theoretical. So he went for everything which brought relief to the untouchables, to the end of caste annihilation of caste, to the end of social stratification practices. So thanks. With that, we complete this unit on Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Read it again to answer your check your progress questions. All the best, students of MAPY. Stay well and stay fit. Thank you and namaskar.